Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Stephen King podcast. And it's been a while since we had a new episode for you. It's been vacation time and stuff like that coming between. But the good thing about that is that we are loaded with news. I don't think we have had this much news ever in a podcast. So, as usual, Louis here with me. Hello.
Hello, everyone. As we're recording this, it is the Comic-Con weekend in San Diego. We're recording on the Sunday, the last day of the con. So July 23rd?
3rd, yes.
And we're less than 2 weeks away from the Dark Tower movie in North America, at least. So this is a great time for the podcast to come out as we help you get poised for the beginning of the big movie releases in the cinema for Stephen King.
It is. And I was supposed to go to a press showing of the movie tomorrow. But that was pushed forward 2 weeks.
Oh.
So that's a bummer because premiere date here in Sweden moved to August 18, I think.
Yes.
So they couldn't show the movie so early, so I have to wait.
So you're going to see it like August 4th, roughly? Or?
Well, it won't be out in cinemas here.
Right.
So I think the earliest here in Sweden is the press viewing is the 14th. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll try not to spoil it for you.
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
Let's get on. We got like 20, 30 items to cover.
Yes, and we're going to start with the news, and we're going to end with a review or thoughts about Mist, who has now aired 5 episodes. So they're halfway through the first season, and we're going to tell you what we think about that. But let's start with the news.
Welcome. Do not fear the door that lies before you. We will protect you. We are your guides, Hans and Lou, and we will give you the latest in Stephen King news. But before we do so, you must prove yourself worthy. You must open the door and join us in the DeathRoom.
First up is sad news.
Yeah, it is. The big George Romero has passed away, and at least to me, this came as a surprise. I didn't know he was sick. He died of lung cancer, and in retrospect, I mean, I don't think I've ever seen one interview with him where he hasn't been chain smoking. So, but it came as a surprise to me. I didn't know that he was ill, and it's a shame. I think. He was a good filmmaker, and he's responsible for the entire zombie genre. So
absolutely,
yeah.
And he, as Stephen King tweeted, George Romero was one of his favorite collaborators. So that's very nice sentiments. And he was involved with quite a few King movies, of course, Creepshow, Monkey Shines, The Dark Half. So they had a pretty good working relationship. And as you said, George Romero really paved the way for all the zombie movies that have come along afterwards, and novels and comic books like The Walking Dead and so forth. So yeah, he was quite the pioneer, and we will miss his further contributions to the cinema.
Definitely. Okay, moving on to more happier news. A new date for the Sleeping Beauty tour was released this weekend, and it was the October 2nd event at Missoula. I think that's right pronunciation.
Missoula, Montana.
Missoula, Montana, yes. And with that, 7 of the 10 venues has been announced, and 5 of them have already been sold out.
Mine hasn't been announced yet.
Nope. Canada comes last. Oh,
or second to last.
Yeah. So if you still want to go and haven't found a ticket, you can still go to the Chicago reading. There's still tickets left for that one. I don't know how much people they take on that one, but I actually went to Google Maps and checked that out, and it's a huge building that lies on that address. So I imagine there's a lot of people there.
Right.
And the Missoula one, where the tickets are released on August 4. So that's actually the only 2 venues that are still having tickets. And the one missing so far is Portland, Toronto, and Sarasota for October 3rd, 5th, and 6th.
Yep.
Yep. And I will be at the New York event on this September 26th.
Right off the bat, eh?
Yep.
Nice.
So I'm grabbing them while they're fresh. And
exactly. I was just going to say that. They're nice and fresh. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. We might see by the end of the tour, Owen might be, Stephen King might be piggybacking on Owen's back or something like that.
Yeah. Or the other way around.
Maybe. Maybe.
Yeah. But we will cover 2 of these events, the New York event and the Toronto event.
Right.
And hopefully we'll be able to record something maybe to put on the podcast.
Hope so, yeah.
Maybe talk to some of you listeners out there if you're interested in giving us your thoughts on the event and stuff like that. So let us know and we'll set something up.
Right. All right. Yeah. So after that, the rest of the news we've grouped together by categories because Comic-Con is going on right now. The month of July has just been crazy with Stephen King news as the premiere dates for both The Dark Tower and It grow closer. We're going to break it down by categories, and you can check out at Han's site for all the links for these. And the first one we're going to look at is Castle Rock, because this is the one we know the least about, and it's probably the most intriguing. So we've got, how many? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 news items for this one.
Yep.
I don't know. How's the best way to do this, Han? Do you think we should go through them one by one or just talk about all of them together, or...
Yeah, I think we can talk about them all together, and if you're interested in more details, you can always head over to the site and check them out there.
Right. Okay. So I'll just read off the titles for each of the links.
Yep.
First one's talking about Castle Rock filming in Massachusetts. Then we got some big casting news. The first bit of news we got is the star of the show is Melanie Linsky, who you probably know as the next door neighbor to... What was that show called again with Martin Sheen? Or not Martin, Charlie Sheen? 3 Men?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so she was the next door neighbor that was obsessed with Charlie Sheen's character. And in this series, she's going to be playing a character called Molly Strand, who has a rare medical condition, and she's a real estate agent. Every third property is the site of somebody's worst nightmare. They've also mentioned that Andre Holland is going to be playing Henry, a death row attorney. So we're kind of getting a little bit of a Green Mile vibe there, maybe. I don't know. But the story takes place in Castle Rock. And so that's interesting casting. I don't know if she's had previous King experience. She wasn't something from King before. Am I drawing a blank on that? Or I can't remember. Oh, Rose Red. That's what it was.
Yeah,
so,
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Then the other 2 casting announcements have King connections, so that's exciting. First off is somebody who made her career, I believe, or started her career, was none other than Sissy Spacek.
Yes.
From Carrie. So she's coming full circle, or she's kind of bookending her career maybe with Stephen King projects. So that's interesting. Hey, Hans?
Yeah, and she's a great actress. So that will be really interesting to see what she can bring to this.
Yes, and she's playing Ruth Deaver, the estranged adoptive mother of Henry, who is the character I just mentioned, who's the attorney. So that will be interesting. And we, of course, just have to wonder if there's going to be any Carrie references with her character. And then the other big casting announcement. Why don't you take that one, Hans?
Yep, the Swede again, Bill Skarsgård. Yes, who's playing Pennywise.
not in the series.
No, I don't think he will be playing Pennywise here.
No.
But he is also cast.
Yep.
And he is playing a young man with the unusual legal problem. So we'll see what that is about. And it was interesting because just this weekend there was an interview also from Comic-Con with writer Bernard Givens, who will write for the show. He's in the writing staff, and he mentioned that the story of the season will be a original story.
Yep.
But they have the rights to numerous of King's stories, so they can pick and choose from involving characters. And I think he mentioned if they want to have Jack Torrance showing up, they can have that. If they want to have, remember who he mentioned, but he just gave some examples that if they want to have them showing up, they can have that. He mentioned that they couldn't have someone from It or The Dark Tower since they are their own movies now. Yep. But other than that, it seems like they have a lot of rights for a lot of characters. So I think that my guess is that this will be a standalone show, but they will talk about stuff that has happened, like the murder from Dead Zone will be probably mentioned, stuff like that, and maybe someone who was involved with things that happened in the book. So I think they will take input from a lot of different stories and make this a combination of their own story, but it takes place in all these Castle Rock stories. So I think this could be really cool if they do it right and not overuse the Castle Rock items and characters just because. So they need to have a firm story in the background and as the backbone, and then can add these little tidbits and cameos for us who know the Castle Rock stories.
Yeah, very intrigued by the series. We don't exactly know, but it sounds like it's going to be a serialized story now that we've got these characters. I was wondering at one time if it was going to be more like an anthology, but based on the character descriptions, it sounds like it's going to be an ongoing thing, which is going to be interesting. Yeah. And another side note is the writer, Mark Bernardin. If you listen to watch any podcasts, he co-hosts with Kevin Smith, who you all know, the Batman and Fat Man, and they do like reviews of movies and comics and all that kind of stuff. And of course, Kevin Smith had that awesome interview with
Josh Boone.
So if you're curious to see more, learn more about Mark, check out the Batman and Fat Man Kevin Smith podcast. So that's kind of cool. Yep. And we also had one other item that they have a director, Michael Uppendale, and he's worked on Mad Men, American Horror Story. So he's doing the pilot. I don't know and he's also a co-executive producer. So it sounds like he's out of the J.J. Abrams stable. I'm not sure if he's going to direct more than one episode, but that's somebody to keep an eye on.
Yeah. Yeah, and the plan is to start filming this summer, I think, and premieres in the next year.
Yep.
So that's something to look forward to. And Hulu did a good job with 11/22/63. So
yep,
we know that's a good home for a Stephen King show. So
absolutely.
Yep. Okay, moving on to Mr. Mercedes, who is almost upon us now. Premieres August 9th, and we have gotten a new trailer. Of course, Comic-Con, they have their big day today, so we don't know anything from the panel or what will be said there. I would guess that takes place in maybe a couple of hours from now, so we won't have time to cover that in this episode. But they have promoted it all over Comic-Con with, I think they had a hunt where you can look for clues to find the killer, I guess, since that's Mr. Mercedes, and stuff like that. So they have really been all over the place for this one. I have seen the first 4 episodes.
Oh, be quiet.
Yeah, but I can say as much. I've actually written a very spoiler-free review that I was allowed to do about it, and I must say I'm extremely impressed with this show.
Great.
I think this one can be a real winner for this year and one of the best that's been done from a Stephen King novel.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We're going to need that, especially after we talk about The Mist later on.
Yep.
All right. With that little tease to get keep you interested after the news. What do we got next here? Okay, so we have some general movie news as well. Some of this, I think most of this came from Comic-Con as well. And the first item was about, and remember, these are very much in flux at this time. Anything can happen. Yeah. And, nothing's ever solid till the camera starts rolling. So
no, I would say that when it comes to news like this, that someone is connected to some of King's work, I would say that 9 out of 10 times nothing happens. It just fall apart. So take this with this hasn't been really confirmed, and we don't know that this has actually happened. But it's news that's coming, and we want to report about it. So be prepared if it happens.
Right. So we have 2 items here. First one is Rose Matter.
Yep.
Asaf Bernstein, he directed the acclaimed Israeli TV drama Fada, which, and that's Fauda. So if I'm mispronouncing it, my apologies. I don't know anything about that series.
No.
So he's been signed on to direct an adaptation of Rose Matter, and this will be his. He just wrapped his first English language film, Look Away, and apparently King was a big fan of his series and was receptive when the writer-director approached King about Rose Matter, which is interesting that this director, out of all the King properties,
Yeah.
Pick this one. Maybe they saw this was the only one that wasn't being worked on. I don't know.
Yep. I've always seen Rosemary as impossible to film almost because of the things that happen in the book. But we'll see what happens. Maybe it's possible, but it's not one of King's most filmable friendly works, I would say.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, but I really don't think there's a limit on anything except the money that they can get for a project. If you've seen the trailer for Ready Player One, which is Steven Spielberg's next movie, it's about a VR game and all like characters from the 80s are in it. So like in the DeLorean, and you've got like the Iron Giant and Batman and all this kind of stuff. I don't know how they got the rights to use all this stuff. Go watch that trailer. Then you'll know that nothing's impossible anymore because it's pretty amazing. Anyhow, that's a sidebar. We've also got Insomnia, and this one is I got a bit of an interesting take to it in that they're trying to leverage VR, which to me, right out of the box, limits this.
Yeah.
And they're planning to break it into film an hour and I guess see how it's received. And they'll break it into 5 to 10 minute segments, which you can use to watch on either your PC or the PlayStation. I don't think you can watch it on the Xbox because they don't have a VR headset yet, even though I know it's a Windows platform. But definitely Windows and PC, PlayStation and PC, you'll be able to watch this.
Yeah.
And this is Lloyd Sagan, who we know quite well from the Dead Zone series and as well as Haven.
Yeah.
So I got to admit, I'm curious about this, but I guess they want to do it because of maybe the gnome-like creatures and the life auras that they cut the strings on. So I don't know, but I guess because this person's suffering from sleep deprivation, they want to play into his almost hallucination experience in the story. So that will be interesting, but the audience for this will be awfully limited. I mean, I'm not going to go run out and buy a $600-700 VR headset just so I can watch this. So hopefully they're going to film it so that you can watch it in a conventional 2D way as well.
Yeah, it's interesting that they try different things, but I agree with you. I mean, if you have the stuff at home, maybe you'll watch it, but I don't think that a lot of people will, as you say, go out and buy it just because of this. Also, I don't know how to react really on the 5 to 10 minutes segments. I usually think it's better to watch a movie all in once. And 5 minutes, 10 minutes, it will be very, very cut up. And well, I don't know. It's an interesting try, but I'm cautious optimistic about it.
I'm intrigued. I'm blasé about it because the VR aspect of it, I'll never be able to experience unless VR headsets get really cheap in the next couple of years. So, but it's interesting. So maybe it'll generate enough buzz to create a bigger push for VR, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, and if those projects were uncertain, the next 3 is even more uncertain because this is more like that they want to do it and they are in talks about it and stuff like that. So this might happen and it might not happen, but it's interesting. And the first is a TV show based on the breathing method from different seasons. It's Weinstein Television who is going to do this. And, well, you know what it's about a gentleman's club, I think, and about a woman who's pregnant and has an accident. I don't really know how they're going to stretch this one into a TV show, but I guess this maybe they'll go for the club and have different people tell different stories, almost like Twilight Zone and Tales of the Dark Side and stuff like that.
Yeah, it'll be an anthology series, I would think.
Yeah, and this the King story will be one, maybe the pilot.
Yeah.
And the second one is that DreamWorks Animation is in negotiation for doing the House on Maple Street, which is a short story from, I think it was in Nightmares and Dreamscapes, if I'm not mistaken. And well, this could be interesting. I mean, DreamWorks is a good studio doing good movies, good animations. I don't know if the story itself is enough to make a full-length movie from. Maybe it could be interesting. These movies usually takes quite long to make, so they are in negotiation now. So I guess we won't see this for a couple of years if it happens. And lastly, there are plans for a French TV show in English from the 10 O'Clock People.
Interesting.
Interesting. And this will be a Europe-based TV show. So I guess that means it will It will take place in Europe, maybe France, but they will speak English in the show. Well, we'll see how that works. Usually, when people speak English and aren't in an English-speaking country, it usually gets kind of weird. But we'll see. And this also how they are going to do this as a TV show. It's about people who see aliens, and the only one who can see them is the smokers.
Now they'll be vapors.
Yeah.
They'll be vaping and.
Yeah. So I don't know how this is going to be extended to one TV show. Anything's possible, I guess. But
yeah, correct my memory. Yeah, correct my memory. But wasn't this supposed to be a movie? Like, didn't we report on this a couple of years ago? And the director, I thought they actually had gone into filming, but we haven't heard anything for a while. It's kind of fallen off my radar. So. Yep,
it was going to be a movie, and they changed the title. I don't remember what it was now, but they changed it to something quite different.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think they ever got as far as start filming that one. So.
Oh, okay. Well, that's too bad, because I think that film idea would have been cool. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm curious about the animated thing too, because DreamWorks is probably next to Pixar. They're the biggest animation studio out there, so that would be interesting. Are they going to turn it into a movie, a 90-minute movie? Maybe that's interesting.
Yeah,
I guess it could work.
Yeah, and I think it would be interesting to have a King story animated. I don't think they have done that except for Dollar Baby or something like that, but not a full-length animation.
Right.
That could be interesting.
Yeah, I'm curious to see that. That'd be fun.
Yep.
All right, so now we're down to the last two big ones, saving the good stuff for the last. And which way do you want to go with this, Hans? Do you want to do the one that I've got listed next, or do you want to do the one that's at the bottom first?
No, let's go in your order.
Okay.
Yes.
So it is not that far away anymore.
No.
And the buzz on this has been pretty fantastic since they released that first trailer, which went on to break down viewing records. I think it was 197 views in the first 24 hours, which is way past even Star Wars views. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see when the Last Jedi trailer comes out, if that's going to take the crown away from it. But for now, this seems to be the movie, and you and I, Hans, were talking about this in between shows on the emails, and that everybody seems poised to just want to love this movie even before they've seen it. So if it delivers the goods, this movie will probably just rock it might be up there in the top 1 or 2 for box office at the cinema this year. That's how, at least that's the feeling I get. I don't know how that's going to be delivered, but it's gone beyond just internet buzz, where like something like Snakes on a Plane, where I think everybody was saying, oh, this is going to make a lot of money. And then when it came out, it only made like $10 million or something like that, because only the people on the internet wanted to see it.
Yeah.
But the clown thing is cut across. It's part of the cultural consciousness. So we've gotten a ton of, we're getting continuous stories about it. We've got a new photo of Pennywise that was out a while ago. I think people are getting used to the new look of Pennywise now. I think he looks really good.
Yes.
And the movie has had a very big presence at the San Diego Comic-Con. They've had a couple of panels. They showed 2 scenes, and they also showed the new trailer, which I believe is going to drop next week. We haven't seen that yet. And they have a bus, an IT bus, a school bus, where it's like a virtual reality experience. You can go in, and then I don't know exactly what the clips are playing, but you get to go through the sewers and see Pennywise and stuff like that. So there's a lot of stuff here, and I just know if you just have to go to Hans' site and just look at the last couple of weeks. There's it's articles all over the place. What pops out at you from the bulletins that are under this topic? It's
interesting because everyone who talks about this and have seen stuff from it seems to like it.
Yeah,
I've heard very, very few comments that are negative about this one.
Yeah,
and I mean, and I don't think it's only because it's the hip movie to like now and stuff like that. So I think it is really good. And the only thing I heard from Comic-Con as well, it's been huge present there with panels and showing and stuff like that. And the only disappointing thing I heard about it was actually the VR bus that some people thought wasn't as cool as they thought it would be. But that's promotion, so that really doesn't affect the movie in itself. And at Comic-Con they showed 2 scenes from the movie, and as you mentioned, a new trailer. And if you want to know more about that, go to the post I have on July 20, where Entertainment Weekly go through those 2 scenes, and also the trailer lets know a bit about what was in those scenes. And as usual, there are spoilers. If you don't want to know, you shouldn't go there. But from what I read, it sounds really, really great. And one interesting thing more that someone pointed out that I really hadn't thought about until someone pointed it out to me is that over the last, say, week or so, we've had enormous of publicity for this movie. There's been Comic-Con, there's been trailers, there's been photos and stuff like that. And the interesting thing is that Bill Skarsgård, who plays Pennywise, hasn't done an interview, non-appearance. He hasn't done anything to promote this movie. And what I heard from people is that they think that this is a genius move because he's going to be this scary, unknown figure. And I have to agree. I mean, he will be more scary now that you see him in the movie compared to if he would have been at a panel at Comic-Con without makeup, making jokes, maybe being this likable guy. So I think it's a brilliant move.
Yeah, absolutely.
On their part to not have him exposed until after the movie. And I guess it's a deliberate move because...
Absolutely, yeah. That is a fantastic move because to keep a little bit of mystery, because in today's connected technologies, it's very hard to maintain mysteries about anything. So to keep him kind of on the back burner until I'm assuming till at least the movie premieres is a great move.
Yeah, I think I just have to say one more thing about that. And I think they have had a very good plan from the start with this.
Absolutely.
Because in the first trailer, they show very little of Pennywise. They sneaked out a picture of him. In the next trailer, we got to see more of him. And I heard now in the third trailer, we will actually hear him speak. So they are taking it gradually, building up the interest, building up our want to see more and more and more. So the marketing of this movie has to be a schoolbook example of how you're marketing a movie in the perfect way.
Yeah, and like you said, besides the disappointment with the VR bus, I've also heard that they have had, I don't know if they're kids, but they're people dressed up with the raincoat and the hoods over their head, and they're holding a red balloon, and they just sort of walk through the crowd, but they don't say anything, right? And so people turn around and they see it. So they're really, from the first trailer on, I think they've done a pretty fantastic job with this. And I think that if you listen to Andy Muschietti talk, there's an interview with him that I've linked onto Hans's site from Collider with Perry Nemiroff. Fantastic interview. Andy, I don't know, he mentioned something that he had a late night, so I don't know, he seemed to have trouble talking in that interview. He's very, very deliberate, or maybe he had a bad headache. I don't know, but his answer is good. He addressed some of the concerns. There's that one big scene that everybody always freaks out about, and he addressed that. So you can watch that interview. There's clips from the panel that they did with the kids, and the kids also did an interview with EW, a video interview that's linked up on Hans's site, and you can check that out as well. And you can see that they had a lot of fun. They seem to have really good chemistry, and they all liked working with the director and that. So that's pretty cool. The other two things that are really cool is there's a really short video snippet with Joe Hill, and he mentioned that he had seen the movie, and he put it in the top 5, was it? Scariest movies?
Top 5, yes.
Yeah, of all time. So that's high praise, and take it with a grain of salt because he's the son of Stephen King. But I don't think these guys say this stuff unless they're sincere about it either. So that bodes well, and that just stokes the anticipation even further to want to see this movie. So check out all these articles. We'll have to put up like a sub link somewhere so that people can just sort of click on the links that we're using for our show notes. And instead of
we can do that.
Instead of polluting your front page with a laundry list of links. And of course, then the other guy, I had heard that obviously Andy Muschietti has invested in this picture, and they asked him about whether or not there will be a sequel and if somebody else will be directing it, and he said no way. He says, I'm not letting this go. So if there is a second movie, he will direct it, hopes to start filming next year. He also mentioned that the kids would make appearances in the second movie, which we had talked about, right, Hans? As probably making sense. So that's really good to hear.
Yeah, that makes sense from the book as well, because there you have the adults thinking back to when they were kids. So it makes sense to have the kids come back.
Yeah, and they can't wait too long, right? Because the kids are growing, so you want them to be in the same age range as the first movie. And
they haven't got the green light for a second movie yet, but once they do, he mentioned that hopefully the script will be done in January, and then they will start shooting. So hopefully they will shoot it next summer. So then it's 1 year has passed, and is probably no problem.
Yeah, because they shouldn't all be hitting puberty yet. I don't think they're
No.
all under. I think they're all around 11 or 12. So hopefully the kids they're growing up quicker with every generation. And then there's two other really interesting items here because Andy Muschietti, he says that he's going to direct it. The man's got a busy slate. He's apparently attached to I think it's Robotech movie, as well as he's going to be directing the pilot to a new TV version of Lock and Key. So that's really good news. The fact that he's getting job offers after doing the first It movie, you can only assume that people in the industry have gotten a chance to screen this movie and liked what they see, and they want him to work on their other properties. So that's pretty good. And they had a good director to begin with, Scott Derrickson, who has had to leave because of a scheduling conflict with TNT's pilot adaptation of the Snowpiercer movie that starred Chris Evans a couple of years ago. So Andy was able to step in. So that's pretty fantastic. And again, another artist building a career based on the work of Stephen King. So hopefully this will go to series this time. I still haven't seen the pilot from the version that wasn't greenlit before, which is I'm really dying to see that. I'm hoping someday that becomes made available, but I don't know if it ever will.
No, that is one well-kept secret.
Yeah, which is too bad.
I actually found the trailer for it.
Oh, wow.
Online. But I haven't found the pilot. So, but I would. The trailer looked really good. So
yeah,
I can only assume that the pilot was as well.
Yeah.
I actually have one thing about it that isn't positive.
And
that is actually I don't like the second poster that came out.
Oh.
Where the kids stand in the fog and you see Pennywise in the middle.
It's a little too misty.
And I think it feels like the kids has been pasted in afterwards. It doesn't seem like this is a photo they've taken. They've taken photos of each kid and placed them in the photo. And no, I don't. I the first one is so. Maybe it's because the first one is so nice. I think that this one can't really live up to it. So I think that is, if you're gonna really find something negative about it, that one is.
All right.
And we have to mention one thing that really gets my interest is if you go to check out my photos from Comic-Con, they had movie props. They had Georgie's clothes, and they had the boat and the missing posters. And, well, they were lucky I wasn't there. I might have snatched something up from them.
You're lucky you weren't there. You would have got arrested.
Yep. Probably.
So, what can we say more about it? It just seems to be one big love fest. I haven't heard hardly any negative remarks or vibes attached to that project at all. So they're in a very good position. I think they have several advantages over the next one that we're going to talk about, in that it's a well-known property and people are familiar with the material by and large, so they know what they're getting, and what they're seeing is matching up to what they're expecting. But with The Dark Tower, much more question marks are hanging over this one.
Yes.
Mixed bag of perceptions from everybody. Of course, people want a straight adaptation, which we're not going to get. This is a sequel. There's the whole casting issue.
Yeah, I must say that I'm actually happy that this is a sequel and not a direct adaptation. I think we talked about this earlier, because I don't think you can do a straight adaptation of all the books.
Not cinematically. It's a TV series, maybe, but yeah.
Yeah, maybe, but as we have talked about, Jake is is about the same age all the way through, and so I have my doubts that they can actually do this good, and then it's better to do a sequel or follow up so they can take some liberties.
Yeah, because you have to do some compression of the story for a movie. So
yeah,
and I really think that, talked about this before, but The Dark Tower is a property that it's the most flexible storyline of any project that you could work on, because it's about multiple realities and different timelines, and there's a lot of flexibility in there as long as you get the characters right. And I'm, on the one hand, every trailer that I've seen, I've really enjoyed them. I thought the second international trailer was really good. It didn't change a lot, but it just some different lines of dialogue on that. Really, the first one set up the whole concept of what the Dark Tower is about. The second trailer showed more about the conflict between Roland and the Man in Black. And in the third one, you got some more action sequences that gave some of the scenes that we had seen before a little better context, especially like when he dives over that cement railing or wall. But then you see where he lands in this trailer, and it's like, it looks a lot better, because I thought he was like diving down like Batman or something like that. But he's actually jumping across and shooting while he's land on top of somebody else. So it actually looks really cool. And there's that one scene where Walter's walking away from him, and Idris Elba, as Roland says, "Face me, Walter." And I just like get chills listening to him. I just played that little sequence over and over because that's why you get Idris Elba. Because man, does he ever nail that line? Like all the pain and passion, and like that's a Luther moment for sure. So I'm getting comfortable with all that, but then just when it's starting to feel a little better, we get news of the movie length and 95 minutes. What do you think of that, Hans?
Well, they usually say the size isn't the problem, but I don't know. 95 minutes, and I guess that is with the intro, with the text after credits, yes. And so, I mean, then you're maybe around 85 minutes of actual movie. And, well, it really is a matter of what they do with the time they have. So I don't think you can say that the movie is bad because it's short. If the time is well worth, this could definitely be as good as a 2-hour movie, because if a 2-hour movie is done wrong, it will be very slow, and you start looking at your watch and wondering how long it's gone and stuff like that. So, and really it really doesn't matter the length of it if you consider that this is it's not that they have adapted the first book or the second book and stuff like that. They have done a continuation of the books, and there's nothing really that says that it can't just stop there and continue in the next movie. Because what they have said about this is also this is an introduction to the world, to our main characters, to what the Dark Tower is, and stuff like that. So I don't think you can say that it's going to be bad just because it's short. It's a question of how they use the time they have. So my initial thought was, this is very short, they won't be able to tell the story in this time. But then again, if they use the time right, and I often say that it's usually better to have a tight, a little bit shorter movie than having a long movie where you start to yawn and wondering, oh, is this going to end anytime soon? So I don't know. My first instinct was that it was not good that it was short, but the more you think about it, it's really not the length. It's what they do with it that matters.
Yes, not going to touch that line. I totally agree with you, and I'm actually really happy to hear you say that, because I thought we were going to be arguing about this a little bit. I think everybody going into this, because you think 8 books, you're going to get 3-hour movies, Lord of the Ring epic type movies. But Lord of the Rings was a property that everybody, even if they hadn't read it, they knew the general outline of that story. Here, beyond the book readers, and this is really important to remember, because like we represent like less than 5% of the movie going audience that's going to end up seeing this. People don't know the story at all. So basically, if I understand, and if you listen to the interviews that are linked up here, there's 2 that he did with Nick Arcel, did with IGN. He talks about setting up basically like the 3 characters, Roland, the Man in Black, and Jake. And if you focus on those 3 characters, it really becomes, and all you're using the rest of the books is to flesh out the universe that they're in, it really becomes like Stand By Me in a way, in terms of character development. And that movie's 89 minutes long. And I don't think that movie suffers from that length at all. I think it's, and obviously it's a smaller work and it doesn't have the same world building requirements, but still, because all that stuff's in the background in the picture frame, it's really what the characters are doing that it counts. And if they can really work especially the Roland and Jake relationship, and if they can sell it to people that it's like, if you've ever played Last of Us or familiar with that game, if they can make people see that it's not like a never-ending story kind of thing, but more like a Joel and Ellie storyline from that video game, I think that they'll really hook them in. And of course, you've got McConaughey and Elba facing off against each other, and the scenes that I've seen them against each other, I think look pretty epic. I think the last trailer gave away more of the story than I really wanted to know, because I think I've got it mapped out pretty good now how the movie's going to play out. I don't know if you've had that too as well, Hans. I don't want to say it in the podcast. Might be wrong, but I don't want to speculate. Based on what I believe how the storyline is going to play out, I think it's going to be a pretty, like they keep saying, it's a tight, lean movie. And you listen to the interviews with Nick Arcel, and he did the Reddit talk, and he knows the property. He can give solid reasons as to why they took the approach that they're taking with this movie. And like you said, I think it's sometimes better to have a tight, lean movie and leave the audiences wanting more. And basically, I'd rather see them with a $60 million budget, spread that over the 95 minutes that they got, than rather try to really thinly spread that same budget over a 2.5-hour movie and really have to make compromises in the quality of the movie, because everything that I've seen in the trailer, and obviously they're showing them, they're putting their best foot forward, it doesn't look like a cheap movie.
No,
the special effects look great, and the tower looks awesome. Roland's gunplay looks really good. Now, we've seen shots of some of the locations. I had a laugh with when the Man in Black was using the, certainly looked like gear shifts from a tractor to let the beam go up to the tower. but I thought, that's kind of retro cool. It works. But yeah, I think that it is going to be the widely more popular movie, but I think Dark Tower is going to be the more surprising, and maybe it might be just as good as it, but just obviously in a different way.
Yeah.
So I'm still optimistic, because I think Arcel, they have a good grasp on what they're trying to do. They're not trying to go beyond their budget, and a smaller budget means a shorter runtime. And if they get these three characters right, that sets up everything else, and you sort of get people used to the idea that there's portals that they can jump through and stuff like that. And Arcel says that this movie works as a standalone, but it also set up for sequels, so that he says fans of the books will know at the end of the first movie that it's set up to go get the rest of the quartet, which, again, that's the answers that I want to hear. So I'm going to stay optimistic about it. I'm not going to get all depressed about it, and I'll find out in 2 weeks anyhow. So.
Yeah, and some of the things he mentioned in this Ask Me Anything interview was that it will be based mostly on the first and the third book. So that's something that people have been wondering.
Yep.
And also, one of the things that have been asked over and over and over again since the time when Idris Elba was cast is how they're going to solve the racial tension between Detta and Roland. And he also had a good answer for that, that they are going to do something about it. He didn't really tell what, but he's aware of that scene, and that it has to be different now that the casting is as it is. So he's definitely aware of the things that is in the book and is in the movie and what needs to happen. So I have more faith in him now after hearing him answer all those questions actually than before. So that's positive. Yeah.
All right. And I like that one shot too in the last trailer with Jake standing on a cliff or something, and you can see like those tornadoes, sandstorm tornadoes. I think that's supposed to be the wastelands. So yeah. So the trailer, everything I'm seeing just looks really cool. And yeah, we're going to find out soon enough. Geez, I mean, the Art of the Dark Tower book is supposed to be out Tuesday, unfortunately, and I don't know what I'm going to do with it I'm sure I'm going to get it next week. I think I should leave it in the box until after the movie, because I know if I take it out, then the temptation is going to be too strong to start flipping pages. Exactly. So, and then the soundtrack comes out at the same time. So as a movie, which is usually they come out earlier, which is interesting. And Junkie XL, he's got quite the YouTube channel. You should go there. He talks about how he scored for Mad Max and all this other stuff, and the amount of equipment he's got just blows my mind. Yeah. That's something worth checking out as well. And the other good sign is that this movie looks good is, again, like Andrew Machete, Nick Arcel has another gig after this movie, and he's going to be directing a JFK biopic with Matt Damon. So, I mean, if this movie sucked, I doubt he would get this job. So I think all these things still, his take on the series, the fact that he's going to be directing something else of that magnitude, I take those as all good signs that this is going to be, I think this movie is going to be the dark horse movie of the year.
Yeah, and one concern that I have also is that this movie has to be leaving the viewers with wanting more and feeling that this is the beginning of something bigger. Because if it doesn't, we won't get the TV show, we won't get the second movie, and this will fall flat. Even if this is a good movie that we who know the Dark Tower like, understand, and know that more is coming, if the non-King fan who see this doesn't get the feeling that they want more, we won't get more, because they will be in the majority of the moviegoers. So that is very important, that we are left with the feeling that we need more, we want more, please continue this story.
Yeah.
So that is, and that really doesn't have anything with the running time or stuff like that. It's more like they got to have a twist on the end that makes us want more of it.
Yeah, and you got to have you gotta make the audiences identify with the character. I mean, look at Valerian. Just came out this weekend. $200 million big science fiction blockbuster movie by the same Luc Besson who did The Fifth Element. And that movie is crashed hard. Like it only took in like $17 million, like 10% of its budget. That's going to kill careers and maybe his company. That's just terrible. So spending a ton of money on a movie is not a guarantee. And look at Dunkirk. It's only like an hour and 40 minutes. And it's number one at the box office. Of course, it's a Christopher Nolan movie and he's got that cachet, but money and length don't always guarantee good box office returns. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with this. And the other bit of news that came out of this, and I think this is more something that we've already been aware of, is that they reconfirmed that Idris Elba would take part of the TV series, for which they've already written the first 2 scripts or the pilot. I can't remember now. But to me, that's just a little bit of media preening, because they're just going to say that just sort of to build up the profile of the movie itself. But I don't think Elba's going to be that involved in it. He might bookend the series or something like that. I think we've heard that already. And I think Tom Holland was supposed to be doing that too. And then we had concerns about that, because if Roland's telling the backstory, because the TV series was confirmed to be based on Wizard and Glass, which makes sense because it's a prequel, that you need the rest of the quartet there too to hear that story. So I don't know how they're going to handle that. We'll have to see. Yeah,
and that it could be the introduction to Eddie and Susanna. That they are
could be,
with Roland at the beginning telling the story without us really knowing who they are. And then we find out in the second movie who they are. Could be.
Yeah. And it was interesting that when some of these promo things were coming out, or that King, I think, or maybe when King said it was a lean, mean movie, and then Paul Aaron, who, of course, has been rumored to play Eddie, tweeted, says, I can't wait to see it.
I wouldn't be surprised if there is a second movie that he get the role of Eddie, and once that is public, he tells us that he has had the role all the way since they cast the first movie, and he's been doing these tweets just to get the people psyched about it. But I think he might already have the part.
I kind of have that feeling too.
That is my guess.
Otherwise, why would he keep? Well, he might just wind on, just keeping his voice in their ears. But I wouldn't be surprised to find out, like you, that he's already been signed on if the sequels are greenlit, which we'll find out in about 2 weeks from now. Because we'll know the box office numbers pretty quickly. They start estimating based on the Friday returns, and we'll know by Saturday for sure.
Yeah, and one thing that will be very revealing, I think, and very nice when the movie is actually out, and we can actually decide if this movie is good or bad based on the movie and not based on the news we get. As a lot of people say that this will be crap because it's 95 minutes. This movie will be crap because Idris Elba is playing Roland. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But then we will know, and we won't have to speculate. And frankly, I get very frustrated with people who say that this will be bad just based on.
Yeah, that's frustrating too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that will be nice when we actually know for sure.
And there was one thing that I want to talk to you, Hans, that Nick Arcel said that's very interesting to me, is that he said that the movie was a continuation of the books. So we have now, or we will very soon have a movie which is a continuation of the Dark Tower story. Generally, big profile movies get novelizations. So who is going to write the novelization? I haven't been able to find out if there's even going to be one, but as a book reader of the series, I would like my next Dark Tower book, even if it's based on the movie. So could there be a surprise announcement this year or soon that Stephen King has actually done the adaptation of the novel? That would be something totally different for him, but I cannot really wrap my head around a Dark Tower book being released not written by Stephen King.
No, and I think because of what you just said, I don't think we'll get a book version of the movie, because I don't think King will do it, because I don't think he want to write a book based on a movie based on a book he wrote.
But he sent a lot of notes to the director, and actually he printed out the script, and all his notes were handwritten, and he had it physically delivered to Nick Arcel for review. So that's interesting. I don't know. I'm just speculating. I have nothing to base it on. But generally, most of the big movies get novelizations, and this logically, I mean, it's a no-brainer that there should be a book based on this movie because it's already a book series to begin with, right? So that's a big opportunity that would be missed.
But do you think? I mean, I'm skeptical because obviously King would have to give his okay to
Oh, for sure.
a book like that. And do you think he would let someone else write it if he
this
doesn't
is my
want
question.
to? The only one I think, if this would happen, the only one I think that could do it and would get the okay from King to do it is Robin Firth.
Oh, that's interesting. Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I think she could probably pull it
Yeah.
off because she probably know the Dark
Oh,
Tower.
Robin,
better
are you
if-
listening?
Yep. So she could
Yes,
pull it off.
or maybe
if-
Peter David, because he's been with the comics.
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't think they could pull it off.
I do think that, seriously though, I do think if they novelize the movie, I do think it'll be somebody else than King. I just don't see him.
And that would be kind of weird.
It would. That's the thing though, right? But
Yeah.
But if I had to put money down, I would say somebody else besides King would do it. And it would be very interesting to see who they would pick to have that honor. Mm-hmm.
If I put it like this, would you want a book like that?
Absolutely.
You would?
Absolutely. Because
I don't think I would.
Oh, for sure. You don't.
No, but I think the Dark Tower in book form is the one Stephen King has written.
Yep.
The movie will be its own, and I think a book version of the movie based on the book would be a mixed bastard.
That's what a bastard is. But no.
Yeah,
no, I know what
no,
you mean. Be a mongrel.
Yeah, I don't think that would work actually because
Yeah.
it would be so confusing and people would.
Well, you know what you got to do, Hans? You got to run a poll on your site, because I ran a quick Facebook poll and it's not very many responses, but it's like 11-2, I think, in favor of the book being novelized, especially by King. Or the movie being novelized. Sorry. So you should run a poll, see what people say.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I will do that.
Yeah, and put me down as a yes. I want a novelization. I prefer it by King, but I will take it by somebody else that he picks.
Yep. I will post that and see what people think. we can check that out.
There you go. That's all our news talk. That's quite a bit. I mean, that's exciting times. Man, oh man, is it exciting times to be a King fan. We're 2 weeks away from seeing the first of the two movies, and then 2 months from now, we're going to be living in a world where we've had these two movies, and our years of anticipation of building up to this point is going to be switched around, and now we're going to be looking at them in the rearview mirror.
Yeah.
And I think it'll take a while for us to process it. I mean, because I know what I'm going to get with it. I'm comfortable. I have two different approaches here, because like with the Dark Tower series, I hear people are reading the books before the movie comes out, and I said, no way am I doing that. I don't want any of my connections to the books carried into the movie. I want to go into the movie as clean as I can. But with it, because it looks like a much straighter up adaptation, I just finished rereading that book. So I'm geared to go. But I think for the Dark Tower movie, and I'm curious how you're going to approach this, I think for the first time, I'm going to have to go by myself. I just don't think I'll be comfortable with anybody else around me. I need to be able to process it. And I'll probably have to go see it again after that just to say how I really feel about it.
I have the fortune to have a friend who is as crazy in Stephen King as I am. So we are going to probably go and watch it. But I would not go and watch it with someone who doesn't know what the Dark Tower is. Because the worst thing that could happen
well,
is
that's a good thing you got your friend then.
Yeah, and someone nudging you and saying, oh, who's that? What's that? Who?
Yeah.
And I would be like, shut up. So that can ruin a good friendship.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's like two project. I just looking at like, am I just rationalizing my two approaches to this? But I'm just looking at it as what's the best way that I can go into these two movies and get the maximum enjoyment out of. And I've basically ended up taking totally 180 approaches to both of them, which is interesting.
Yeah, it definitely will be interesting to finally see these movies because, as you say, we have been talking about them for ages, and
yeah.
I mean, the Dark Tower has been in the making for years and years and years without anything happening, and soon it's here, and will definitely be interesting to see it.
Yeah, and then we can start getting excited for the sequels.
Yes.
All right.
Definitely.
So, folks, chime in with your thoughts on all this King news, of course, especially with it and the Dark Tower coming up, what your fears and hopes are for both of them and how you're approaching them, whether you're rereading the books or not. So we're very curious to find out how everybody's doing and how they're handling the anticipation.
Yep. Okay. And that's the news for this time.
Whew, for this time, man. That's
Yep.
You can't go on holidays anymore.
No. not around Comic Con time.
Yeah, because it's been a while since we've done one. So it's just, but I'm glad you came back and weren't on vacation while the movies were coming out.
Yeah. Yeah, that wouldn't be good.
All right, so that's the news.
This is great. What's our job? We'd like drive around, pick up stiffs or what?
It's time for reviews from the night shift.
Now we're going to turn to The Mist, and
Yes.
I don't know if we're going to be able to keep up our same levels of enthusiasm, but Hans, you've seen 5 episodes.
Yes.
And I've seen 4. And since you've already written your reviews about all these episodes, why don't you take the lead and tell us what you're thinking?
Yes. Well, The Mist has been airing on Spike TV, and as some of you probably know, I have a personal rule that in order to know if a show is good or not, you need to see at least 4 episodes, because it takes that time to get to know the characters, and you want to know where they're going with the show and everything like that. So, as Lou said, I've seen 5 episodes, so now we're starting to have a pretty good idea of where the show is going. And from the start, I think we both know that this is not going to be a straight adaptation of Stephen King's story. We thought that maybe the pilot would be the story we know from the written story, and then they would continue on from there. That didn't happen. This is a totally new twist on King's story, and we follow a new group of characters. It takes place in a mall, in a church, and in a police station. And there's a lot of more characters than in the film or in King's version, more lead characters that we get to follow. But the ground story is still the same, a mist coming in, and there's people taking refuge in those places. And we know that there's something scary in the mist. We don't know what. So there you have the similarities. And the difference are that here the mist are affecting the people to do and feel things, and it's more psychological, have a more psychological effect on the characters. And the monsters in the mist is more unseen here. We don't see them as much as in the movie, for say that we have the big spiders, the big flies and everything like that. We don't see that here. It takes a couple of episodes until we see the monster, and here it's more of a smoke monster almost. So that's the general premises for the story. And when I had seen 4 episodes, I was quite happy with the show anyway. I think it worked. It had some logical problems, but it worked, and it was still a show that I felt I wanted to see and see what happened, even though I was hoping for more monsters, which didn't really happen. And last week we got the 5th episode, and as I said in my review for it, it was a painful review to write, because there all the logic went out the door, I think, and the character started acting really strange, and the episode was very focused on a few things, and it didn't really bring the story any forward. And what happened was just, it was more not logical, and well, that episode was a disappointment for me at least. So after 4 episodes, I thought it was a okay series. The 5th episode was definitely a disaster. And now we have 4 episodes left of the first season, and I must say that I can't really wrap my head around this show. I thought I had, but this 5th episode really turned 180 for me, and not in a good way. What are you? Now I've been babbling on here. What's your?
And it was a good babble. I was very interested to hear what you're saying. I also go with the 4-episode rule. I think that's more than enough time to establish what you're trying to do with a show. And I think there was some really good ideas. The idea of splitting up the people to multiple locations was a nice twist, and something that you would need to do to set up a TV series as opposed to a movie. But the problem is they rushed too much in the first episode. I understand you want to get to the mist coming in, but I think that it shouldn't have come until the 2nd episode. You had so many characters and so many different locations that the first episode was really overstuffed, and certain things that happened in that episode happened so abruptly that you're like, this seems all not realistic. The characters' reactions were not allowed. They weren't allowed time, and the audience wasn't allowed time to process some pretty dramatic events, like the girl, the high school girl and storyline in particular that I'm thinking of. And then in the second episode, you started to see the genetics of the show in that rather than things happening where it felt like the character was responding to the scenario, it was flipped and the story was making the character behave in a certain way. And I don't know if this applies to what you were talking about in the fifth episode, but I'm thinking particularly about the storyline with where the mother, the high school teacher, and she's a tall, thin woman. And even though they cast a short guy, the guy was still a military guy. The guy had a gun. And this mother, high school mother, was able to overpower and kill the guy, a trained military person. Like just took me totally out of the episode. It just didn't make any sense. Like it wasn't believable. I mean, it was a shortcut to get to a situation where the radio got destroyed or broken or whatever. But there was different ways to do that, and it made me worry that we were going into under the dome territory where characters were changing their behavior every week depending on what the story was doing. And while it's not as blatant in here and it hasn't happened to all the characters yet, but anytime a character in the show has to make a tough decision, it doesn't feel natural to the character. They end up acting in a way that doesn't jive with what you were seeing before, especially like that whole sequence with the army guy and the mother going in that room to get the radio. That whole sequence really took it down quite a bit for me. Nothing as bad has happened since then. Though in the fourth episode, when that little girl was in the shoe store, and they were all just standing there looking at her like, seriously, open the door and go get her. I thought, well, maybe the door's locked. But then the other girl came out and she just walked out. And I'm going, seriously? And then there's these others, like some of the crowd sequences where they're taking votes. They're including the women. And I'm all for equal rights and all that. But I would think like if some of those adults had kids with them that they should have been exempt from a vote like that. Like, and the high school mother volunteers, like, and she's got her daughter and she's supposed to be so concerned about her daughter, but yet she's willing to go on this dangerous mission. Like, it just doesn't feel believable. The stuff in the church was really slow and not much was happening. And I'm not really sure what the insect thing is all about. And that the actor who's playing the nature lover person, I don't know her name now, but you said she was really good in another series, I think 6 Feet Under or something. Her character, I don't really know where she's going. They haven't really mapped that out. And I can be a little patient with that, but I would like to see more there. And then the other sequence in the second episode was the worst for me, because then they had like the army guy and the girl that's the druggie. And she's going to, try to steal drugs. And he says he takes it away from her. But then he just puts it on the shelf and walks out and leaves it. Like, do you really think she's not going to take it? And then she ends up being the driver of the car. As soon as she got behind the wheel of the car, I knew they were going to crash the car. Like, it was, like some of these, and like they're just cheap. Sometimes they're just taking the shortcuts to get to the story point. So overall, like if you put Under the Dome at the bottom, and you have like say maybe Haven, and then to me, I think so far Dead Zone is still the best Stephen King TV series I've seen. I would put The Mist somewhere between Haven and Under the Dome. Probably a bit closer to Under the Dome than to Haven. I do like some of the things they're doing with The Mist in terms of when the characters go into it, it almost like they blur along their edges. It's almost like the mist is sort of absorbing them. But that's a technical thing, and that's not really a character thing. So that's cool. But unfortunately, as I think you mentioned, Han, like there's no logical, the mist itself is not consistent. You have some characters that are wandering out there for hours without seemingly being hurt. You have other characters go out and then 30 seconds later, they're dead. It's not consistent, and it's just changing to serve the story. It's kind of like on The Walking Dead when they're talking and all of a sudden a zombie pops out somewhere that really it shouldn't. So it's that kind of cheap device. So sadly, it's not something that I get excited about watching every week. I think that there was potential there, and you've got me really worried now with the fifth episode. I don't know if it's going to write itself. Conceptually, I think they had some really great ideas, some good twists on the movie, confined location version, the execution and the writing of the characters. And this is sometimes the crush of a TV schedule. You have to get these episodes out. But I think that more time was needed in the writing room to make the stories flow from the characters and not from this plot lines, which is often the case when you see with TV series. And it's really important in the King adaptations because the stories are about the characters. And if you don't believe the characters, then the story falls apart. And that's what's happening for me in The Mist.
Yeah, and I must say that I was expecting more monsters in the mist.
Yeah.
There's been some hinting that there's something out there, but there's been mostly insects like the spiders and the moth thing that flew in the ear, some guy. And I have to admit that I really didn't understand that scene where he grew wings and exploded or whatever happened.
Yeah.
And these smoke monsters. And I think that it's more scary, like in the movie where you see those big flies and spiders and stuff like that. That's more scary to me than what we are seeing here.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a budget thing that it's easier or cheaper to add like a smoke monster after.
Probably. Yeah.
Instead of doing these monsters. So I don't know if that's the case. But
or
I
maybe
think
they think they're like lost or something.
Yeah, but even if they're using the smoke monster or something like that, they need to use it more.
Yeah.
Because now the mist is more like you're afraid of walking into like say a house of chemicals is burning and the smoke is toxic and you don't want to walk into it. It's more of that kind of feeling now, I think. It's not mostly because there's strange monsters out there, I think.
Right. And then the moments that should be really impactful don't have the impact. Like when in the movie, when they find out that guy's from the army and they throw him outside, like that's a really big scene. But in this episode, like in the last episode, they voted to let that kid that had moved those with his buddy had pushed those two bodies outside. Then they voted to let him go out. It was, whatever. Who cares? like you didn't like the character, right? Like you felt sorry for the army guy, but for this guy, he was dick. So you didn't really care if he got sent out or so they're just little things. And then I bet you, and I don't know if this happens in the 5th episode, but they've set up, like in the previous episodes, they had like 4 army guys in the mall. So now 3 of them are dead. And one guy is still the army guy, and they know he's the army guy, but nobody's gone to him and talked to him about what's going on. But I can bet at a certain point in the series, they're going to say, hey, that guy's from the army. We should grab that guy and find out what's going on. Meanwhile, they've let him walk around for 3 episodes or 4 episodes and haven't talked to the guy. So, the characters are not acting in believable ways. And that's my biggest concern with our issue with the show right now.
Yeah, so it's not looking that good for the mist, but I haven't given up on it yet. It looks dark, but it can only be lighter.
Yeah, it's not under the dome bad yet, but I'm just afraid that anytime a big decision has to be made, they take the cheap way out and the lazy way out instead of having the characters act in a way that you can believe, even if it's harder to do. But some like you just watch the group scenes. It's like, oh, they're going to say this now because they want to get to this thing done or whatever, instead of having a really true discussion about it or whatever. I'm just not believing the characters. And if you don't believe in the characters, everything else falls apart.
Yep, and there's 5 more episodes left.
6 for me.
6 for you. Before the season is over. We don't know if there's going to be a second season. We don't know if we're going to like it or not. But I guess next time we record, a couple of more episodes will have been aired. So I guess we'll have to leave it open until then.
Yeah, we will. Yep.
And in worst case, Mr. Mercedes is coming, and at least I am extremely happy with that, as I've said. So
good to know.
We have that to look forward to.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. There's always seems to be another Stephen King adaptation around the corner, so we don't have to linger on. It's not like in the olden days you got something and then it would take like 5 years for the next thing to come out. So he's definitely on a high right now in terms of adaptation, and I guess it's because all the people that read him growing up are now at the age where they're in the business of making movies and TV shows, and so they're making adaptations of these all these works that they grew up with. So that's cool.
Yep, definitely.
Yep.
So, anything else you want to add before we sign off?
No, except we're less than 2 weeks away, at least in North America now, for the premiere of the Dark Tower movie. So I don't know how we're going to handle the next podcast, Hans. Am I going to have to go solo on that one? Or or do you want me to hold off on my review until after you see it? That's going to be kind of interesting because you're like, another 2 weeks after that, right?
Yeah. But let me work on that. I haven't up on I'll try to find the right person's ear and see what they can.
All right.
Yeah. I want to add one more thing. I just almost finished Joe Hill's upcoming book, Strange Weather.
Wow, that's not out till late.
No, it's out in October, I think.
Well, that's a ways away.
Yep. So I read it's a collection of 4 stories.
Right.
I've read 3 of them so far, and I am very happy with what I'm reading. So
Awesome.
you have that to look forward to.
So are they like
before.
novella length stories?
Yeah, I think they're around 100 pages each. Book is 400 plus pages.
Okay, cool. So it's really much like different seasons then, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
So they're really good stories. So that will be a great read once it's out.
Yeah. All right.
Yep.
Well, that's cool. I see some people are saying on Twitter that their copies of The Art of the Dark Tower has shipped. I'm really going to have to struggle with that because I know I'm going to get it at least by Thursday or Friday at the latest. I think I will just leave it in the box until the movie, though, because I don't want to. Yeah. I just don't want to tempt fate and my weakness.
Was the postage of it high? Is it a big book, thick book?
Well, it's through Amazon, so if it's over a certain cost, you get it free shipping. So I'm not paying any shipping for it. Plus, I'm also Amazon Prime member, so which allows me cheaper shipping, and you get lower prices on certain items. Plus, they have their Amazon Prime Video service, so you get to use that. So that's how I saw American Gods. So yeah,
okay. Yeah, I'm thinking maybe to get that book while I'm in New York in September.
Good idea. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see. Maybe you have to fly solo on that one, or we'll hold on for that one until a later episode.
Sure, I can just sort of maybe give general impressions, and then when you get it, then we get more of a deep dive.
Yeah. Sounds great.
All right, sir.
Okay.
Here we go. Another one in the can, and this is the last time that we're going to be ignorant about these 2 movies. Probably. Well, it will probably get another podcast, maybe 2 in, but definitely Dark Tower. We'll be hard pressed. We'll be hard pressed to have another podcast out before that airs. So yeah, we're leaving one era and moving into the next.
Yeah, the life as we know it before pre-Dark Tower is now officially over.
This is true. Yeah, now we're either going to come back next podcast really depressed or ecstatic.
Yep. And, should be interesting.
It will be. And I'm sure a lot of our listeners are in the same position. So we're all in this ride together. Keep visiting Han sites for the latest updates. And of course, there will be, I think, over the next 2 weeks, we'll start seeing early reviews trickling out as well. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Especially, are you going to read any reviews before you see it?
Yeah, I'll scan them just to get a general impression. And a lot of people do video reviews as well, so it'll be hard not to watch them, and that also will shape your mood as you go into the theater as well. So. Yeah, we'll see. Yeah. It's hard if you're on the internet, not to get some sort of osmosis of opinion.
Yeah, it's a pain.
Yes, it's a pain in a way, but on the other way, you get to see all this. Like we get to see all this cool San Diego Comic-Con stuff that we would never have gotten to see before. So you have to take the good with the bad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. Until the next time, we will definitely talk Dark Tower, I think.
Yes.
But until then, stay safe.
But.
Stay scared.
The end. Cool.